You're listening to an episode of the Two Act Podcast. I'm your co-host Adi, and as always, I'm joined here with GOTHJON. So today, I've chosen to review a Korean film called Decision to Leave, directed by Park Chan-wook, who previously directed films such as The Handmaiden and Old Boy, a film we've reviewed in the podcast. So, Decision to Leave released in 2022. So it's a fairly recent film and it premiered in the Cannes Film Festival where he won the Best Director award. So I'm just going to read a quick synopsis to give you an intro to the plot. From a mountain peak in South Korea, a man plummets to his death. Did he jump or was he pushed? When Detective Hae-jun arrives on the scene, he begins to suspect the dead man's wife, Seo-rae. But as he digs deeper into the investigation, he finds himself trapped in a web of deception and desire. The film stars Park Hae-il as Hae-jun, the detective, and Wei Tang as Seo-rae, the suspect he investigates. So we'll go into opening thoughts. John, what did you think of Decision to Leave?
I wanted to like this one. I feel it was interesting. I liked a lot of the cinematography.
I agree. I think it's a beautifully shot film. Like every scene, every shot, even the transitions, they stood out for me. I mean, it's kind of a noir, slow burn mystery with elements of like maybe romance, but there's a lot of like tension between the two characters, the detective and the woman
The
he's
suspect,
the suspect
the
who
prime
he's
suspect.
yeah. I think it's what's interesting is like it's like it's kind of like a murder mystery in a way because it starts off like that. It's about a detective finds a man. They find a case where a man's found dead at a bottom of a mountaintop, and as they investigate, they have the prime suspect out to be the wife. Turns out the person who died was a immigration officer who liked rock climbing, and they found traces of his blood everywhere, and they were trying to investigate whether it was a murder or a suicide. And I guess the detective, he's kind of like an insomniac, so he can't sleep, and he's kind of like a workaholic. And yeah, he ends up like interviewing the wife, who's this Chinese immigrant who he suddenly develops like interesting relationship with. So he kind of like they kind of have a sort of relationship that forms, but
Fucking
it's like
weird. Like I want to say like this movie it hooks you in with like the mystery and you're like, okay, what is going on? You're trying to like find stuff out and then it like kind of like completely tonally shifts and it becomes more like a rom-com and I'm like, what is going on here?
yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like it's got all the elements and the vibe of like a really classic murder mystery, kind of like a Fincher type, thriller, like maybe within the veins of like Seven or Zodiac. It could easily be about a serial killer, maybe, but it takes that sort of framework and it flips it inside out and it makes it more about like the detective who ends up slowly growing infatuated with this woman who's he's meant to investigate. And there's a lot of like, I must say, like, the film is like not graphically erotic or anything, but it's really sensual. Like, you feel like you're gonna watch a murder mystery, but there's a lot of like sexual tension between him and this woman throughout the film. And you're wondering like what's gonna happen. Is he gonna like, because he's married, she's married, and you're kind of thinking like, is he like gonna fuck up the investigation and
Pretty
you know
much what he's doing. And he's falling asleep on stakeouts. He's like me trying to watch this movie like halfway through. I'm just like trying not to fall asleep. And then he falls asleep in the stakeout. And then his suspect's like knocking on his window. And it's just like, come on, guy. He's like,
Yeah.
just, he's a good detective. He's just making a mockery of it.
Yeah, he's very methodical. He's very like,
And
I mean, what was your
it's kind of
impressions
like
of him?
He's kind of like Batman. You know, like he's taking little notes of every little thing, as like every great detective should, making note of things that might be red herrings, and he's trying to gather all the information. And he basically is narcoleptic at some point just because he can't fall asleep.
No, he can't. He suffers from. He's constantly, there's several scenes that showcase his issues, his health issues, and he
Mhm.
can't sleep. But weirdly enough, as you mentioned and pointed out, he falls asleep
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
stakeout.
He has
Um,
insomnia. It's straight up insomnia.
it is insomnia, and I think that's a really like interesting character detail to add because it's kind of like people are in, who I don't personally know anyone who suffers from insomnia, but I've always wondered like how can you not sleep at all? Like your body really needs rest. And yeah, I've always wondered how like people who have this condition function
Yeah,
because they have to
a
find
friend
some
that
ways
did.
to get rest.
And well, growing up, I had a friend that did, and she was like, "Man, I wouldn't wish this on any of my friends." And I'm like, as like a huge night owl, I'm just like, "Yeah, I want to be insomniatic. That means I get to play all the games." And then when you've ever been, like 48 hours of no sleeping, I'm sure that's exactly what it feels like. You're drunk. That's basically what it is, and you can't think. You can't I obviously can't sleep. And when you try to sleep, you're just lying there and lying there and lying there. And then you have to like get up and do something because you're bored. And it's like the worst feeling ever. I've had it compared to just like, just kill me now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that is what I found interesting about him was how that affects his whole it affects everything. His whole personality. He's kind of like a dull guy. Like he's not really cheerful. He's really serious. He's got a wife who he meets once a week, who lives in another town, and it's like it's really odd like relationship dynamics. Like everything is so stilted, and
He
he's
doesn't
just like
deserve her.
probably doesn't. I mean, she's trying her best to
She's
like
trying to make it work, and he is giving her like nothing to work with.
no, he's it's a classic workaholic. He's shutting down. He's put up walls emotionally, and he's only committed to his profession, which is solving crime cases. And he gets like completely obsessed with this particular case because there's something about this woman that I think speaks to him. And she's really like an interesting character too, because when they interview her, they don't quite know why she's not displaying like signs of grief or she's not like, you know, really emotionally affected by her husband's death. And then you start to wonder, like, oh, did she really have any like involvement in it? But as she's being interviewed,
Especially when she smiles during the interview, you're just like, all right, this lady's suspicious as hell. And then
yeah, and my thoughts were like, she's got something to do with it for sure. I didn't buy. Did you buy the bait? Did you think?
I bought it a little bit. She kind of like puts it in as like, maybe he's abusive. And she even has like that tattoo of his initials, and he has his initials on everything. So,
Yeah.
maybe it's domestic abuse. Maybe that's a part of it. That's
Well,
what I Yeah.
that's how it's pointed out, right? Because it,
Yeah.
it it starts off as
Like a
uh
closed open shut case.
yeah, a fairly straightforward case that could be pinned down to like an abusive relationship that perhaps turned into suicide. And you're seeing like, yeah, like you mentioned, the initials, the tattoo, and then you're seeing like bruises on her legs and hands and broken ribs and you know it's like he starts to then follow her out and keep an eye out to her to check for any like suspicious signs, but he doesn't really find anything until he discovers like that she's from China and that she killed her
Yeah.
terminally ill mother with fentanyl pills at her request, which I thought was an interesting like twist detail that comes out.
And then they say
Which
the line where only a killer, what was it? Something like along the lines of only a killer would be nervous of being accused of murder. If they've already killed
yeah,
before, they would have no like response.
yeah, yeah. Um,
I'm fumbling the crap out of that, but that's generally the gist of it.
it is the gist of it, and it's like the film really deceived me because at one point I was thinking, okay, you know, perhaps there is a killer that they're looking for who's maybe she's tied to this guy or they might be someone else. And then you're seeing a few like sequences where they're like chasing an assailant, which I thought
Yeah.
was pretty cool. I really liked how a lot of the detective work and like the interviewing and all the chase scenes were really shot and framed. Like the shots are framed in unique ways. Like there's that shaky POV shot when he's chasing the guy through the stairs. And then there's that cool fight with the knife where he has like the
The
chain
glove.
glove that he
Yeah. Yeah.
uses.
Chainmail glove.
Chainmail. Yeah, that's what I've never seen anything
I'm
like
sure it's
before.
more popular in countries that don't have gun violence, like in the States. That would never work in the States. That's why they wear vests.
Yeah, yeah.
And they did wear vests
It
when
was
they
like
went to like the gun range.
yeah. So, but it was interesting. I like when they showed all those scenes. I was thinking like, oh, this could easily like because this guy is the guy who directed Old Boy, which
Right, right.
uh,
You got the hammer scene. You're thinking that,
well, it could
like,
be like he's not afraid to turn to violence or
right?
even have anything more
No,
shocking.
no, he's not
Uh,
skittish by any means.
no, no, he's not. We, I mean, we know because we've seen his work, and it's like we know what he's capable of.
Hmm.
Uh, but it does feel like he's directed this like he's directed the shit out of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the
Like
best.
every
Best part of the
frame.
film is straight up the cinematography. Like the
Yeah,
very really close shots. They don't feel too close that they're claustrophobic, and they kind of like let you in on like the characters, their like emotions and their life.
yeah. And I thought that was like one of the strongest points of the film, where the tension between the two, because at once he does start to interview her and they sort of like interact, and you can see that he starts to laugh at her jokes, and there's like
Mhm.
a lot of like close-ups of their eyes, and there's this tension that starts to build. And I believe like you could see that he's perhaps getting clouded, like his judgment's getting clouded by her, and you're thinking, oh, she's like, she comes off as perfectly innocent, and you know you can't deny that there's something happening between the two, even to a point where I think his partner even tells him like, you're being like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, questioning whether he truly is investigating her
Right.
and not like, giving her an easy ride out by not like, focusing on the evidence that could be linked towards her. And I thought that was interesting because it's like most of the times you watch like crime films, like how common is it to watch a crime film where the investigator actually falls in love with the suspect? I
Almost every
mean,
time. Yeah,
not
and I
all.
don't necessarily think that. How do you say your name? Seore?
Seore, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I believe so.
So like, I don't necessarily think she's the grand mastermind or anything, but like a little, some of the things are just a little too perfect, especially like with her Korean. Like I initially had a feeling like her Korean's a lot better than she leads on, and how like she fumbles words and she has very choice words she chooses from to fumble on, and I'm wondering, is that intentional? But then she starts using the translator straight
Yeah.
Chinese to Korean. I'm just like, okay, maybe she does actually just suck at Korean. It kind of makes sense.
No, it's that's an interesting detail for sure, because it's like I think he even tells her like your Korean's even more perfect than mine.
Mm.
Like he compliments her.
Hmm.
Ironically, I don't know if it was backhanded, but at the same time, you start to see like she's perhaps like got motive because she would be wanted back home in China, and it's almost like even the suicide note he finds, it ends up being something that was forged, and I think that was the twist at the first half of the movie. Really focuses on investigating this case and like trying to understand whether it was a suicide or a murder. But it almost seems like he wanted it to be a suicide so that he could like perhaps form a relationship with her because she could be like you know cleared
Right.
from being linked to any crime committed, which I thought was interesting because it conveniently resolves. You know, it's not like I think there's even pressure from his superiors that tell him like get on with the next one because
Oh, that's every crime movie. It's always about the supervisor that was like, could you just start cranking them out? You got to drop this case. I want you
yeah.
off the case. You can't handle the case. Like there's all these tropes that usually show up in these type of things. Yeah. I did think it was weird when Seore's case was closed. Like it was very abrupt. I thought like this
Mm.
whole movie was just going to be about her case, and in fact, I think I would have liked it more if it was
When you say her case, as in like not about the murder
like the initial murder. Like I wish it was more just like about that initial murder.
of her
Uh,
first husband,
yeah, like I felt like
the old
I
man. That
yeah, I felt like they just dropped it like too like early, and just because they're like there's so many like weird and suspicious things that she's done.
yeah.
That if so, I know the burden of proof. I'm sure in places that aren't the U.S. I'm sure is really high, but you can't just let anybody and everybody tamper with evidence. You can't let them just conveniently lose their cell phone or anything like that. Like there's motive, and
Oh yeah, then there's the thing with the cell phone because like when he tries to find her alibi, she was meant to be like at a client's place who she's
yes,
also a
a nurse.
caretaker.
Yeah, she's a nurse.
She's a nurse,
Yeah,
and they found. I mean, they look up the cameras and they find like she was at that location. But it's interesting because like the phone, what they tried to like check the phone and they've come to the conclusion that she was actually at that location and there was nothing wrong. And then that's interestingly again revealed what happens because she ends up flipping the phones, switching the phones with her because the person she's carrying to owns the exact same model as that. And I thought that was perhaps too convenient. Like, what's the odds of that happening?
right.
I mean, I know we all like have, it's usually
Well, in
an iPhone or an
in
Android.
Korea, it's almost everybody has a Samsung because Samsung's Korean company. It's kind of like in the States where like 75% or like 60 or something have like an iPhone. Like I don't because I'm
iPhone.
I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a contrarian. But
Contrarian.
yeah, yeah, no, I won't
Yeah.
have an iPhone. That's just I'm lazy. I don't want to learn another operating system. Yeah, and another thing about the actress that played Seore, she kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of the older gal in the first season of Squid Game. Now, I know that because they're both Korean, yada yada, but her name was Hen Mi Yao. That was the actress that, or was that the? See, I'm getting the actress and the character names because in Squid Game there's 100 characters, so you don't necessarily remember the characters unless they're in like the last three.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a lot older, but some of that like manipulation, like type tactics, and she kind of has sort of the same face structure as Sayore. And I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me. I had to double check and make sure they weren't the same person, but that's just because 100 characters is hard to keep things straight.
I don't blame you. But I mean, she has striking features for sure. I mean, she does look distinctively like different. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like something to do with her personality,
Mhm.
or the way she acts as this character. But you compare that to his wife. His wife is like really vanilla. She's like also kind of like a workaholic,
Yeah.
but this is like I don't know if it's like I don't want to assume stuff, but like it's interesting dynamics within certain Asian cultures where like
Yeah, yeah. In Japan,
relationships are
it's
really,
workaholic. I'm sure it's the same in
yeah,
Korea. They're just workaholics by nature.
workaholics by nature. There's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's rare moments of intimacy. They're even when you look at the relationship he has with Seore, the detective. You don't really see like a lot of like emotional intimacy, but there's this almost like forbidden, caged bond and affection that's seeping out, but it's like it's still hush hush. And that tension, you're just waiting for the bubble to burst at some point. Are they gonna, hook up? Are they gonna
That's what
like
I thought. I for a second there I thought it was like a romantic comedy. Like they're like cooking together, they're hanging out.
because
I'm
that's what
and now
happens once the
yeah,
case resolves.
yeah, and I personally I'm bored out of my mind. I'm just like, please let the plot save me. I'm just like, oh my God. And then I'm thinking, is he going to cheat on his wife? Is that where this is going to get interesting? Like, what's going on? And then, like, I'm pretty happy with the pacing for the most part until we get to this point. And the part where he's spending time with her is just feels so rom-com. It completely kills the mood of the film for me. And then, like, 15 minutes later, we're back on track, and I'm like, God damn it, we didn't even need that.
I gotta agree with you here because it's like I remember I think it was like the point in which like she gets cleared and they start exactly as you said, they start like hanging out and she's spending time at his other apartment where he lives and works, and you're seeing like she's coming over and they're not really doing anything, but they're like spending time together. Like he's cooking for her. They're like going to the temple. And I did feel like I was trying to understand, like, I'm sure there's context and layers to this because the film is edited and beautifully shot. And every transition is like, I must say, like, can't think of many recent films that use transitions so cleverly as this one, but I did feel the drag in the middle. And I did feel like it kind of lost a bit of like spark once the first case was like conveniently resolved until they reveal until he finds out that she was actually guilty of murdering him. And he starts to like, pick up clues after he like grows close to her, and then he finds out like everything she's done is perhaps like manipulative, and what she's done is she's basically got a hold of him and managed to like conveniently get into his head and like cloud his judgment. She burns his evidence photos from his apartment because she claims that, oh, you can't sleep because you're always like disturbed by these cases and you should like move on from them. And he like conveniently takes her case evidence photos of her husband's bodies and like burns them.
Well,
And then you
she starts just making him burn them. She starts burning them.
yeah,
She starts like deleting his recordings of the
yeah.
stakeouts. It's just like, oh, you're tampering with evidence. Interesting. And he's so far up her ass that he can't even acknowledge, hey, this is not what should be happening right now. Like all this
Well,
should be
it
documented.
was only until he meets her client who she takes care of, and he finds out like, you know that's where, because she has dementia, the person she's the person Sarah Ray is caring for, and that's when he checks her phone and he finds out that, you know there was this one particular day, which was the day of the murder, where 138 steps were climbed, but there's no way it could be this old lady because she's not
Right.
moved out of her home for 10
Yeah.
years.
You know,
So that was like an interesting, convenient like plot
yeah.
device where
Which
things just
I think that could have been done better.
I agree. I agree.
Like
Because like, what are the odds of him ending up there, right, in the first place?
like
Like, why
he
would
knows how to write a good story. You don't need to pull your head out of your ass to try to make something convenient. And in fact,
no
you don't necessarily need to explain everything to the person who's watching the film. Sometimes you just leave things, out, and that leaves more mystery and it leaves you more thinking and more talking about the film. When you straight up say exactly what happened, it's just like we're way smarter than that. His films, from what I've seen,
considering this is from the same mind who made one of the greatest, arguably one of the greatest plot twists of all time, right? I
yeah, he
mean,
he makes M. Night Shyamalan wish he could be as that good at doing plot twists.
but it's I must say, like, as much I still, you know, I like this film, and I like the way he's weaved a film that's about relationship and maybe it's about repression and relationships within these two people who are kind of like against against the odds with each other, but they're still, you know, bonding over something. And it's surrounded by a murder mystery, which should just be about a murder mystery. But at the same time, that is a point where it feels like it turned, because it's a pretty big deal in the film's like plot, because once he realizes and finds out that she was actually the culprit and was guilty, he actually turns a blind eye. He decides to, you know, let
Tells her to
her,
basically destroy the evidence.
yeah, tells her to throw the phone.
Just throw the phone in like a river or something.
Yeah, but he does feel shame, and I think he does tell her that he's shattered by the whole thing.
Yeah, and she
But
has to look up what that meant because she didn't understand that Korean.
no, she didn't. But basically, he felt disgrace is when she looks at the translation. But I was thinking, okay, well, you know, I think he realizes he got too compromised getting close to her. And but it was interesting that he didn't feel like, or he didn't visibly show any signs of guilt for like, but because I want to get your perspective here. Do you consider this as cheating, even though like physically nothing really happens or is
Let's see. It's
shown
that's
to
a
happen?
that's a like fine line. Is
It's a
it?
very fine line.
Sure, it could be emotionally cheating, I guess.
Yeah,
Some people think looking at pornography is cheating, which I think is absurd. But whether so in gray terms, no, I don't think he did. But so I think he would have to ask his wife. I think he definitely should have let her know what was going on, and then they could have that fight or discussion or what have you.
but if you look at the way their relationship's been set up, it's so like closed off. It's so like he there's nothing personal that they can really share or talk about. Even when they're having sex, it's so like, they come to an agreement, oh, we should do this once a week,
Right,
even
and
when
they're
we
like
hate each other.
watching TV.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
even
that's
when
like
we
a
hate each
joke
other.
because it says
I mean,
it's
there's literally a scene where he's having sex with her, but he's
right.
literally looking at the corner of the room, which is
Yep.
so weird. Like, he's trusting her, but he's not, like, you can tell he's not emotionally, in the moment at
He's
all.
having sex, but he's not making love.
No, no. It's just it's very mechanical.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought their whole like dynamic was so like, I don't want to use the word fake, but so yeah,
There's no
just
love there.
yeah,
It's
just not organic.
contrived. Yeah.
Like, even though he has physical intimacy with his wife,
Yeah.
that's still nowhere near the levels of like love depicted emotionally that you can sense just from his interactions with Seore. Like, you can see that there's tension that's waiting to burst. Like, you're just waiting to see at what moment, these two, like, he even orders, there's this one funny joke. And I must say, there's like moments where the humor, for me, maybe doesn't land because it tries the tonal shifting, which doesn't work. But I thought the comedy with his partner was pretty good. I don't know what you thought about that. Like his partner gets visibly irritated when he sees like this guy orders like premium sushi while he's like interrogating her, and they're having like, expensive sushi together, while his partner's like, is this covered in the budget? Like what the heck is going on? Because like
Yeah.
earlier he berates him and he tells him, yeah, go have lunch, but don't have anything expensive.
Expensive.
So I thought
Yeah, it
like
was covered. Yeah. Yeah, I got the joke. I didn't think I was really thinking it was that too funny. But that's comedy subjective.
yeah, I mean it sets up his partner as like kind of a comedic relief, but he turns out to be like the sensible one because he's like trying to, bring to his attention that, oh no, that she should be treated like as a prime suspect.
Right. And
But
not as your side piece.
yeah, and I think you can see early on, like it doesn't take too long to see the signs that he's losing his grip over the case. But
Yeah, he
I
he
think
got close to her to, so he could get more evidence, but I think he got too close to her.
yeah, he got a bit too close to her, and he got emotionally compromised, maybe, or maybe he's
Yeah.
so like emotionally stunted that I don't think he even realizes he got too close because he's perhaps maybe even incapable because of his condition to like sensibly, you know, feel emotion. Because it's ironic because later on in the film he doesn't even remember he told her like he loves her until like that recording is like found in her like smartwatch, whatever. But up until the halfway point, the film is like fine. And
Right.
then there's like a bit of a time jump, which basically my issue there was like it tries to kind of recreate the first case, but this time, he moves to his wife's town and he meets her again, and she's like married to this like rich, famous stock analyst. And fairly quickly, that man ends up being dead.
Yep.
And she's again the center of attention to another case. And this time he's like dead sure she did it. Did you think did you think so as well that she
Oh,
was, dead sure that she did it?
yeah. Absolutely. It's a little suspicious that you're the prime yeah, the prime suspect of two murders.
Is innocent.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, no. And as an audience viewer, you're like, okay, well, I already knew she was guilty in the first one, so she's super guilty in the second one. Just a little too convenient. And then when you find out like she fucked around with the body, like the second you move that body at all, I think that's an open and shut case.
Yeah, but her justification was, "Oh, I only moved it because the pool was drowned with blood, and I
I
know how
didn't
that
want
makes you
the
feel uncomfortable."
inspectors to get their clothes dirty or whatever. Said some
No,
stupid
no,
shit.
no. She no. She says because there's a scene early on where he says where she asks him, "Why do you keep like nice smelling cream in your pockets?" And he's like, "The smell of blood makes me feel uncomfortable." Because most of his cases are like gruesome crime scenes.
Right.
And then later on, she's like, "Yeah, the only reason I drained the pool of the blood water was because I know like the smell of blood makes you feel uncomfortable." And that made me like ironically like laugh because it's like, oh, like, yeah, I fucked with the evidence because I know how uncomfortable you'd feel. Like, is this just another way of showing like her love for him, or like,
No, no, it's her trying to emotionally manipulate him further.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and I found that funny because it's like this time for sure you're like, yeah, I'm on the detective side, and he better
Right.
like,
Better
lock her
throw the
out.
book at her. Can't let her
Yeah,
get away with
and there's
another
no,
murder.
because there's no way he gets like emotionally manipulated this time around, right? Because
Right.
obviously what happened the first time was bad enough because he has to live with the fact that a guilty person, someone who he ended up, getting close to, got away. And this time around, but I guess like just when you expect, okay, like she's for sure like done it, he uncovers like he's so certain that she did it, but he ends up coming across evidence that kind of like contradicts that. Did you see that twist coming? What were your thoughts about that? Because turns out her second husband was like in debt with this Chinese investor
Yeah,
who
I was
he
just rolling my eyes. It's just like whatever. I didn't for a second think that she didn't do it. I was
like she
like,
had to be involved.
yeah, she had to be involved in some way. Cause like the first one, even the first one, the first murder. So why he had like no motivation to commit suicide. It's just like,
No.
oh my God. So the only rational thing you could think is, okay, well, he obviously was murdered. You can't just label everything as a suicide. It's just how many
That would be
cases
too convenient.
exactly. How many cases in that I can't the police area thing, I can't remember what it's called. But how many cases that
Busan?
they just go, "Hey, it's another suicide." Like how many cases that run through that office just like, "Oh, man, just everyone just keeps killing themselves."
Yeah.
Just like give up on trying to convict somebody. It's just like it's just too much paperwork maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. And it's like at that point you're wondering like again, her involvement in this is like it's too good to be true that she didn't do it or didn't have a hand in it.
Yep.
But there's literally evidence that he I don't know, like it's so ironic again, but like he finds this man tells her that yeah, like he confesses to killing her husband. And the only reason why was because her mother died. And and he was like expected to receive money he owes this investor from her husband, which never came. And then it's revealed that she actually visited the mother of this investor and basically gave her suicide pills, gave her fentanyl,
Fentanyl, yeah.
which ended up killing her because he knew that if she died, then he would go on and kill her current husband, which again is a convenient wrap up, right? Because if she's not in a happy relationship and she wants a way out and she knows that, this man could end up killing him, that's kind of like getting her job done without like having to do anything
Right.
much. Like there would be no her, she could have an alibi or whatever. Like there would be a way out for her because they even try to find, although they find her like tampering evidence, but there's still no direct like evidence linking to her killing her husband because it turns out like the guy even tracks her phone. The investor had a tracking software in her phone because he wanted to keep tabs. I mean, it's really convoluted at this point. What did you think? Because it's like
Yeah.
I was kind of like
Well,
losing.
yeah, like so once you get to that second one, I was already checked out when we started having a rom-com. I
Mm.
I was gone. Just gone. I was having a hard time paying attention, if I'm gonna be honest. I was having a hard time not wanting to fuck around on Reddit on my phone. I'm having a really tough time. And it's not like I don't have my full undivided attention to this. I was, trying to let it, captivate me, try to a lot of the cinematography. Like I said before, it's like, oh, this is a well-made film. It's just like just some of the writing is just like, why did you do that? Why'd you make it
Mm.
complicated just for the sake of being complicated? It's just this most simple answer is usually the answer. Occam's razor. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you?
But I guess the biggest point to the whole setup to the second murder was the reason why she wanted her second husband to be killed was because he ends up finding out the recordings that she had of the detective and their conversation where he basically like you know confesses his love to her, which he can't remember, right? And like he basically threatened her to like expose this illicit relationship out in the open and like basically, shame her or whatever. And that's the reason why she wanted him dead. So it was like end of the day love the second time around that she wanted to protect that, to protect him. And I think that's why he's so like affected and shocked because at first he doesn't even remember this moment. So I thought that was like cool. Like I liked that it tied. I like that it was like end of the day, it wasn't because she was just trying to get away or whatever, or she was trying to, I don't know, maybe take over his assets and become, the sole proprietor to his property or whatever.
Yeah.
That it was actually like, you know, the relationship was real between the two, and there were still like feelings that were harbored and not fully explored. And I think she tells him like, "My love for you began when yours ended." And I think that's like a big moment in the film. But I gotta say, like, yeah, up until that point, like, there's a lot of pacing issues in this film. Like, I feel this film would have been way tighter and better if it was just like 30, maybe 30 minutes leaner.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could easily cut off 45 minutes. I would
Yeah,
even go further. You could. So the movie, what is it, like 2 hours 18, something like that?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
100
and
yeah.
it there's like a good 40 minutes you could easily cut out of this movie that and make it a lot easier to watch. Like this is not a movie you put on when you're trying to stay awake and watch something. It's
No,
definitely something you're
by
going to
no
get
means.
distracted. And
It's it's a
you're
mood
already
piece for sure.
you're already having, unless you speak fluent Korean, you're already having some of your attention just reading subtitles. And now when you're trying to read subtitles and trying to follow the plot and trying to get sucked into the story, it's just like you're having a lot of problems just trying to just watch the damn movie.
But it's so fascinating because it's like again, I don't know, because like this guy is an art. I'd call him an
Yeah.
auteur director
Auteur,
because
yeah.
like everything is so like confidently shot, stylized, and there's layers, there's context, the framing, the editing, the transitions, the even the acting. I mean, I gotta say, even though some of the characters are flat in the film, but the main two actors do an excellent job in their acting. Like I can't fault with the performance of the two leads, and I think that's the strongest suit the film has. Is like the tension between the two, especially Seo Ray's character. I mean, I think Wei Tang does a really great job, displaying her conflict and like showing almost like an exterior and an interior, which you find out, what she has to go through to do what she does. But I would say like the pacing really put me off in being completely engaged. But what do you think, like Old Boy, if we had to compare it? Because like this is the same director. What do you think that
Uh,
Old Boy gets right that this film gets wrong, or perhaps doesn't get the
mm,
same heights? I mean, I get
I
they're two different films because
yeah, they
Old
are.
Boy is like again, this is more of a slow burn mystery
Yep.
that's about a relationship entangled in a crime case, which I completely
I I think
ambitiously
that
like. But
Old Boy's tone is pretty straightforward throughout the entire film, and the tone of this film is all over the damn place. Now, there is a lot of that skilled directorial in
craftsmanship
it.
that comes
Exactly,
across.
and like the editing and all that stuff and the acting. Like it's all there. Like this has all the parts of being a great film. Like a great, old boy cult classic. Like it has all those parts. But the thing is, like there's just some things like just didn't get cut. Like old boy, you don't feel the pacing. Old boy, you're just like you're glued.
But Old Boy,
Especially, yeah,
but Old Boy is so stylized.
yeah.
Like it's all, I would argue it's like even more like bolder
Hmm.
with some of its decision making in the
With
way
the
like
hammer scene and yeah,
yeah,
and
well, not just the depiction of violence or
yeah,
but also like, the way it's shot and the,
mhm,
the way it kind of feels like a nightmare fever dream
right.
set in like a different world at times. Like the PO, there's like fisheye POV shots, and there's some of that here too. I mean, I gotta mention, like, I did like a lot of the ending. In terms of, like, when I say the ending, I mean like the way they shot the ending. I did like that bird's eye view drone shot of, the beach and the car where he comes across and tries to find her. And I must say, like, this is like one of the most inventive deaths I've ever seen in a film in recent memory. Like, I didn't expect her to, like, basically
Dig her own
dig up a
grave.
hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like wait for her to, like, basically get buried in the beach.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I thought it was too
What was your thoughts about that? Because
I
yeah.
thought it was like just like a lot of things in this film. Like I think it was a little too convenient. It's
Mm.
it's kind of like, so when you're watching anime and they tell you 15 minutes before the planet's going to blow up, and it's like 3 months before it blows up in real time. Like it When you have a smart film, you expect it to be intelligent. Well, that time lapse of her digging that grave and him trying to find out where she's at, it's just conveniently he got there right after she was completely submerged. It was just a little too convenient for me. Like I did,
Mm.
like you said, like I thought that was creative, but I just didn't think it was
It
necessarily
was
like
beautiful though.
yeah, it was.
The
Yeah, it was.
sunset
It
and
definitely was.
everything it was just very
Like the
provocative.
idea of it, yes. I just don't think it rationally makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it is a bizarre death.
Yeah.
I've never seen a death like that in recent memory. And it's kind of like, I don't know, do you even feel bad for the character in the end? Like, do you?
No. I don't think I'm. So this movie is so adjunctated, for lack of a better term. Like it's very, like its tone is all over the place. Like I'm not necessarily, because of the pacing and how crazy the shifts in tone. Like I'm not completely glued to these characters. Like I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for her. I feel bad for anybody that comes into this movie and isn't ready to sit down and watch something like this. Like that's who I feel bad for. I feel bad for the audience. And that's not what you
Ooh.
necessarily want in a film.
Yeah. So you feel like it's harder to take something of a genre piece and play around with it and not make it that, like, say, it's like, would you watch a romantic comedy that has all the elements of a romantic comedy but ends up being a lot more of a, I don't know, completely
Different genre,
against the
yeah.
genre, yeah, an
Yeah,
exploration
if
within
it
it.
was done well, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. There's a lot of things. Yeah, like there's a lot of things that you would have to do perfectly for me to, without a doubt, enjoy it. It's that might be necessarily something that is for some people and isn't for everyone. I think that's a lot of this film. It's not for major audiences for sure. It's for a specific type of film buff. Like it has all these things, but it's I just don't think it works.
Definitely so it comes more of across as like an art house mood piece, maybe,
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
a real crime thriller.
Well, it's not a crime thriller.
No,
No,
but I guess
it's a
it could
romantic
have.
comedy that has some crime thriller in it.
That's what I found hard to describe it as, because it's like it feels like romance is certainly part of the film, a major part of this film, but it doesn't feel like romance that we know it.
Right. Right.
It's like almost,
In
I don't
passion.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like, so from what I know of romance in like Asian culture, at least in Japan, is it's a lot of behind the doors. There's a
Yeah.
reason why Japan's birth rate is so low. They're more centered on working. And then when you're in those workaholic cultures, the only like socializing you do is after work when you're drinking with your bosses. And they even show that some in this film. Like it's
Yep. There are some scenes.
And there's not a lot of shown affection out in public. In America, sometimes it's too much. Like it's borderline. Are they
and that's
fucking? Yeah, exactly.
no, and
And
that's what I mean by the tension in this film because there's so many shots of like the detective and Seo Ray where like both their feet are like, literally close to each other or they're handcuffed together in the car and
right,
they're so close to like touching each other but they're not. And there's also other moments where it could easily you know affection and intimacy could take over, but there's this sort of, I don't know, just there's a bit of an emotional static
yep.
between them that's kind of restraining the whole thing. It's very forbidden. It
Mm.
feels very forbidden. Well, I guess the idea of like having a relationship with a suspect is, you know,
You would get fired if so. In this movie, if they would ever found out, he would have just been
oh
fucked.
yeah, he'd lose his job. He'd lose
Yeah,
his job.
and rightfully so. You completely bungled an entire murder investigation.
And that's what's surprising that he, of all people, of all characters who are so rational and methodical, fucks up because he ends up like growing infatuated
Hmm.
with her, which is so like against who he is as a personality. Like he's not meant to be that type of guy. First of all, he's married and he's like, you know, considered to be good at his job.
Yeah, he's
So
very put together.
very put together, but I don't know, I guess certain people can bring out something different in one if they're like I still sometimes struggle to see what it is exactly that draws him to her,
It's the
but I kind of
murder. He digs murderers. He's like those girls that watch crime documentaries. He's just like, I want to be with him, but I don't want to get murdered by him.
yeah, it's
I like a
interesting.
bad girl. That's what he's like.
Could be. Maybe he's just so yeah, he's not satisfied in his marriage or whatever. And the only way he can get a relationship is maybe through his profession,
Oh,
which
don't
is
be
solving
fucking at
crime.
work. Don't shit what you eat. They'll ruin your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we'll go into final thoughts. Do you want to give it a review, a rating, or any?
Absolutely. Okay,
Uh,
so I've been itching at this for quite a while because of how I felt about this film. I wasn't really feeling this one as much as I did Old Boy. I feel like it's kind of hard to follow at times. Now, maybe that could be like just the language barrier or not being able to completely understand what I just read or being so bored while I read something I have to like watch scenes over and over again to try to figure out what the fuck just happened. Like the middle of the film, I'm so bored. It sucks. I wanted to like this film. The direction and the cinematography are great. The decision just to leave in some parts just kind of let me down. Like I don't care for the script. It sucks. It was so disjointed and all over the place. I feel like you want to take like the love affair out of the story and maybe make it a little bit more buttoned up. It just completely lost me. I really felt the pacing and the length of this film. Because of the cinematography was great. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10.
okay. Where I want to just say I agree with a lot of your criticisms as well. And I too would actually give it a 6 out of 10, but just because of like the the cinematic craftsmanship, the technical. I think the film is so superior with its technicality, like the way it's shot, the way it's edited. I mean, we pointed this out, but also I think despite the issues the film has with pacing, and I think there's like tonal shifts in the middle that don't work. But there's a lot of like it's a film that basically rewards you if you're patient enough to like let it simmer and read between the lines. I think the performances between the two characters are great, but some of it gets lost in translation. I will give it a 7 out of 10 purely because I do think like the direction in this film itself is quite superior to a normal film within this genre. I think that itself kind of edges it a bit above being
Okay.
completely average.
Going from
Um,
6 to 7. All right.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like you just changed it up in there, in the middle there.
No,
Okay.
no, no. I would have given it a 6, but I want to give it a 7
See,
because I think
that
the
that's why we don't
direction.
do half ratings here.
Yeah,
That's how we go.
yeah.
We don't do
Like it's
points. We
easy
don't do
to
none of that shit. I give this one a 6.9 out of 10.
no, no. That's just like taking the piss. I feel.
It sure
I
is.
think I'm content with giving it a 7. I also think like some people prefer films that are like not necessarily about literally the thing it's meant to talk about or explore. In this case, it just very much feels like it's about the tension between the relationship of what happens to be the framework of a murder and a crime, but it's an interesting way to explore a relationship. I think it's ambitious that he did it. I don't think he delivers completely, and it's certainly perhaps not as, you know, I would say memorable as Old Boy, but
Nobody's
the
going to be talking
quality.
about this movie.
No, but I mean, I do point out like the film did sort of, you know, it
At
was
the Cannes
selected in
Film
the
Festival, he
can
got Best Director. Yeah.
where he won Best Director, which is again, that's
Nothing.
a big. It is, well, Cannes is still historically regarded as one of the best film festivals or culturally significant film festivals.
Right.
Uh, so I guess there is a sect in the film community that appreciates it, but I don't think it's strong enough to be regarded as one of his best works.
Mhm.
But it's still an interesting film about relationships. Just wish it wasn't you know tonally and so inconsistent with
Right. And
its
long.
and pacing. Yeah, I know it
Man,
sucks to say this. Trust me, I hate saying, "Oh, the pacing of this film." I know, I completely get it. It can be regarded as generic criticism by saying, "Oh, this movie was too long." Okay, don't watch a long movie if you're not into long movies. I get it. Trust me, I
I only watch
completely get it.
15-minute movies.
But
If
but
I can't watch
there
the
are
movie in
some
the
movies.
TikTok soundbite, I'm not watching it.
But I I do feel there are long movies that don't feel long, and then there are long movies that do feel long. There is
True.
a distinction. So yeah. Well, that concludes our review of Decision to Leave, Korean film from 2022, directed by Park Chan-wook. I believe, John, we can go to a recommendation for our next episode.
Alrighty. So I know we've been wanting to do this rec for a bit because Andor season 2 has concluded. Thank God. The final second season of Andor. Not what I wrote. It's pretty brief. More Andor. This time, there's a lot of different time skips in this one. So, you got that to look forward to. If you don't want to be spoiled for Andor season 2, we try to get these episodes up every 2 weeks. And I'm going to go on a beach and go bury myself in the sand. See you, Space Cowboy.
See you. And just to add, if anyone's not checked out, we did cover season 1 of Andor previously.
Go check
In
it
case
out.
you're- Go check it out. It's goodbye from me.